Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Stephanie Boozer, and I am happy to welcome you to today's CUGC Connect webinar with Login VSI. I think that my screen is not showing, so let me fix that for you guys really quickly. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. It's live TV, folks. Okay, I think you can see it. No? No?
Yep, I'll say it now.
There it is. Yay, bingo. I should win something for that. Okay. All right, now welcome. Let's try that again. So yes, welcome to the webinar. I'm happy to have you guys here with us today. We are going to talk about Citrix Application Layering, and I think we're going to maybe break it apart. I'm not sure. And see how it performs, see everything that you want to know, lots of performance insights. But before we get into that, I want to go over our format for today. Just to let you know, we are going to record this presentation. You'll receive a link to the recording. It's going to come to you in an email from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. That'll be tomorrow. Make sure you check your spam filter if GoToWebinar emails go there. Also, please submit your questions. We're going to be taking those throughout the presentation, some of them during, some of them after. So submit them at the time that you have them, and we'll keep an eye on those and ask them when they're appropriate. Also, before we leave today, I'd like you to fill out a quick survey for us. It's short, anonymous, and it's just for CUGC. We like to get your feedback on our webinars. It helps us plan future content. All right, so who is with us today? We have James Rankin. He is a member of the UK CUGC Steering Committee. He is a CTP, and he's been on several webinars with me already this year. So welcome back, James. You want to say hello?
Hello, yes, back here again. I seem to be the fastest finger first when it comes to getting to moderate the webinars these days. So I'm looking forward. I mean, obviously, Mark and Login VSI, if you've ever been to a user group anywhere, I'm sure you'll have seen these guys doing their stuff before, and obviously very interested to learn more about app layering, because as I was just confessing earlier, it's not really my strongest part of the suite. So I am actually looking forward to this from a kind of a user perspective rather than an admin one as well.
Thank you. And also we have Mark Pluttenberg. So as James said, you've probably seen him at the user groups and know all about him, but he is a CTP and he is the Senior Product Manager at Login VSI. And with that, Mark, I'm going to put everything into your very capable hands. I'm going to send you the screen right now. Make presenter. Cool. There you go. And I am going to disappear. I'll be back later after all the Q&A.
All right, talk to you in a bit. Let me know if you can see my screen, please.
Yep, we can see it.
It's good, Mark, yeah.
Right. Perfect, then let's get started. So Citrix Application Layering, an introduction. I'll do a few marketing slides, and after that we'll dive into the more technology slides, and I'll go about our products. So for the few people who are in this webinar that don't yet know what Login VSI does, we're basically the only solution in the market guaranteed to maximize the end user experience for digital workspaces. So we try to do this by reducing risk and ensuring business continuity by safeguarding application and desktop performance. And as you might know, we do this by using synthetic users to automatically test and validate the impact in physical, virtual, and cloud-based workspaces. Like I said, there's not going to be a lot of marketing, but this one is really mandatory for me to go through. So what does the agenda look like? First, a little introduction into me. What am I doing and what have I done? We're going to talk a little bit about app layering. We're going to talk about how I broke app layering, what I've learned the last few weeks, some best practices from that, and there will be plenty of room for the Q&A. If you do have questions, just in the chat, put them there. James is going to try to answer them. If he doesn't know, he'll definitely will interrupt me, or we can keep him to the end. That's all fine. So who's this guy talking to you? Well, I'm Mark. I'm a product manager at Login VSI, which puts me at the heart of the operation, somewhere between sales, marketing, support, on stage, basically everywhere. I've been doing user experience since 2008, so I kind of think that I know a thing or two about that, but please prove me wrong. I'm definitely not a security expert, so most of the things I say, like, hey, disable your antivirus, disable your firewall because it makes your system faster. Your security officer might have different opinions on that, so please make sure to always consult with them before you disable everything. Have a very fast system, but also allow the bad guys to walk in very easily. And like I said, I've been breaking things since 2008. Now, as you might all have noticed, right, the pace of changes is rapidly increasing. And it has actually increased by 86% since 2016. So what do we mean with this? We've seen that people, IT departments, have to do a lot more changes in the same amount of time, and probably also with the same amount of people. Now, we also know from research that in 76% of IT performance issues, these are caused by change, right? If you start changing things, things can break, and that's not a good thing. So we try to position ourselves in that place before you put a change live, right? Before you put it live, there's still the option to not go live with a change, right? To prevent the issue. But we also keep on checking things in production as you go. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But it's really important to note that the speed of change has gone up, and the amount of problems that come from that has also. And just look at software companies, right? They're all sending you, well, from the big ones like Microsoft, giving you a big update every half a year rather than a migration every 3 to 5 years. Look at software companies like ourselves who are doing Scrum and Agile and are maybe even sending you updates every 2 weeks, right? If you want to keep up with all of that, that's a really big struggle. Now, I wanted to start with a little poll. I want to know a few little things about you guys as well. So the first question there is, are you currently using Citrix layering in production? So you should now see a question come up on your screen. I don't see it, but
yeah, it's up now.
Just hoping it's there. So let's give everybody about 30 seconds to answer that. And what we'll do, we'll go through these results, and I'll also show you a preview of the VDI Like a Pro survey that we are running right now, that about 600 IT admins globally have participated on. So I want to see how this stacks up to that. So do you have results, Stephanie?
Yeah, go ahead and close it out. And 3, 2, 1, last votes. Okay, close it and we'll share it. There you go. Can you see that?
Let me try and find it on one of my screens. No, actually can't.
Oh, okay.
41% yes, 33% no, and 26% not yet looking into it.
All right, well, that's to be expected, right? You're joining this webinar if you have an interest in app layering. And what we've actually seen from our global research is that the interest for application layering is on the rise. Now, again, these are preview results. The survey is still open if you'd like to participate. We're about to close it, so you have to be quick. And if we look at which products are the most popular, we can see that we have Liquidware, VMware, and Citrix app layering. Of course, the people who are not using the technology. So let's take those out, and we can see that Citrix layering, formerly Unidesk, is actually the most popular choice at this point. I have to say that with the survey, it's always a little bit Citrix biased because the Citrix community is just very strong. They participate in more surveys than we see our VMware friends do. We don't really know why this is, but this is a pattern over the years. So the difference will be a little bit smaller in practice, but still it's easy to spot who are the popular ones in the market here. So this was just a little bit of insight in who's doing what in the market. So James and I had a few minutes to catch up before this session, and James already confessed that he didn't know a whole lot about app layering, and neither did I. I've done a lot of performance research. I've been into many enterprise environments where this stuff was running, where sometimes there were challenges, sometimes we could see that it was running and we could make it better, but I never really knew how the technology worked. But, why would I read a manual? So I downloaded Citrix layering, and I thought this can't be this hard. Well, turns out I learned a few things. First of all, there are a few things you need to read manuals for. First of all, IKEA stuff. If you don't read the manual for IKEA stuff, you're going to find in step 17 that you needed to do something in step 3. You didn't do it. Now you can't reach it anymore. If you're doing IKEA, read the manual. If you're doing the Millennium Falcon, it's 7,500 pieces or something like that. you better read the manual. You're probably not going to be able to figure out this one just by heart. And lastly, the thing that you should really read the manual for is Citrix App Layering, because that would have saved me so much time. In the end, I watched some videos by Ron Oglesby. That helped me a lot. Carl's documentation, of course, but really start with reading up a little bit on what it is and what types of layering there are. And of course, we're going to go through that a little bit in this webinar as well. It's just the first tip there. Also, when I downloaded it, Citrix Layering, and I turned it on, I thought I downloaded the wrong version. I thought I had an old version because it was asking me to install Silverlight. And I thought that this had been discontinued already for a long time. Turns out it isn't. So I was making fun to some Citrix guys about this. And I don't know if you can see it, but they actually sent me an I Love Silverlight t-shirt just for today. So I'm proud enough to wear that today. Of course, it's no big problem, but it's just one of those things that, hey, you're starting, and it's one of those quirks. Looking at the future, of course, Microsoft, they are still sending updates on this. It will not be supported for a very long time, so I'm curious to see what updates will come for this. But I really want to thank Rob Beekmans for this shirt. I'm not sure how often I'm going to wear it, but for now at least, it's great. So after downloading and setting it up and turning on the virtual appliance, it's actually not all bad. And I have to say, Citrix Layering really grew onto me the last few weeks, because I had this aversion of layering where I'd seen so many issues in the past with application layering that from a performance perspective, I never thought it was really great. However, going through Citrix Layering and using it with Windows 10, different versions, I used 1809 in most of my tests, not because I don't have a newer one, because that's the most popular one in the enterprise today. I installed some applications into it, just for testing. And I have to say, moving it from different hypervisors and moving it to the cloud, I kind of got the point to what they're trying to achieve here. And actually, yesterday I had a short talk with a product manager from Citrix about Citrix Layering and having their vision behind it and the ideas and how you don't get a performance impact. And don't worry, I'll show you this. Was really eye-opening for me. So I had it wrong completely before I started this. So if anything, I learned a lot in preparing for this webinar, which is pretty cool. So a little bit about Login VSI. I've done the test for today, not with Login VSI, and that might be strange, but Login VSI has moved on to something new, and it's called Login Enterprise. So many of you probably have seen the product you see on screen right now, the white and orange gray interface, which looks like it's still from 2008 or 2010. And honestly, it was, right? We never really did a lot about the looks, but we've come a long way. So this is not there anymore. Or actually, I'm saying it wrong. It's still out there. If you have it, we're still supporting it. We're doing updates, but we're making life a lot easier. And we're also adding a lot of cool stuff. So most people know us just for the load testing, right? The application and infrastructure load testing, breaking things, throwing thousands of users at something and seeing what the absolute breaking point is. However, with the same product now, you can also do application compatibility and acceptance testing and performance and availability testing. So I'll just walk through the steps on how I use our products to figure out what to do with application layering and what the performance impact is and how you can do this in your enterprise environment as well. Great thing, it's all in one box. So you download a virtual appliance, you turn it on, and you're good to go. So it is quite easy. So let's go through how I set this up in the lab. And just for reference, you will get a copy of these slides and a recording. These were the things that helped me most. So there's a Synergy TV session by Ron Oglesby. I learned so many things. And as Ron says in that video, if there's only one thing you take away from that video is that you can actually turn the virtual appliance, the ELM, off when everything is live. So I figured that was really an active component in the mix. Turns out it isn't. And secondly, the Citrix Tips webinar by Rob Zawolski and Dan Lazar, really great. And of course, all the documentation by Carl Stelhout, again, saved my life. So huge time saver there. If you're starting with this, these three resources are your top places to go to. So let's start with application compatibility testing, right? What if you start to do application layering and let's say you have 500 apps, right? You want to quickly identify any applications that fail to launch after deploying an infrastructural or application change, right? Detecting these issues early really lowers the cost of correcting it. And of course, you're doing this in pre-production, right? So let's say you start with app layering. You choose a type of layer, and based on that, you throw your applications in to see if they still work. Normally, this work would fall on your own lab, or maybe at the lab of the application owners, and you don't want to send them stuff that doesn't work. So why would you do that, right? So we've put this use case in our software. So of course, being able to do load testing with hundreds or thousands of users, we're also capable of doing compatibility testing with just a handful of these users, right? And there's nothing extra you really need to do for this. And this checks a few things: application readiness, if it's cross-platform compatible, and it can do reporting. The essence of it is we log on a bunch of users that go through all of your applications and they check if they work. We give you human readable results. So rather than slides, I'm actually just going to show you what this looks like. So this is Logon Enterprise for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And this is my lab environment, so don't expect it to be neat and tidy. This is where I break stuff every day, all day long. And we were talking about application testing, right? So I designed a test for application testing, and I can have many, right? If I have different desktops, I can make groups or whatever. And let's select my production image. In this case, for this webinar, of course, I've prepared one on VMware Horizon View. No, just kidding. I have all of them. This one, coincidentally, is on VMware Horizon View, but don't worry, I am going to use Citrix Layering. I have a bunch of applications in here. Some of them you might recognize: Cerner, Epic, Bloomberg, Chipsoft, Photoshop. Some of these are small applications that if they wouldn't work, it's not really important. And some of them are large applications that your business really relies on. And the basic idea with application testing is you really throw as many applications in here as you can. Now, because it does a quick check, right? So you put all of your applications in there. So we have these applications here. The only thing I have to do is click play, and I would get a report. Now I've already done that, preparing this morning. So we have this report here that I can open. I can do that via the web, but I also can get a report emailed to me, which is convenient. And I can quickly see that out of my applications, 2 of them don't work. Now, normally we don't really report on applications that do work. Just for demo purposes, I have those in here. And if you don't like our reports, this is all doable via APIs as well. So you can just dive into this and get the reports any way, form, shape you like. So let's look at my first application that doesn't work. Okay, it looks like the application, zoom, it was a very phonetic zoom. It looks like the application did start. It's just not the default. Looks good. Based on the screenshot, I can quickly decide that probably nothing is on fire, so I don't have to alert my Severity 1 staff and crack on this. My users will survive. So we had another application that didn't work, and I think it was the last one in the list. Yep, it's FreeMind, and it tells me that I'm missing an application requirement. Now, this is just one of those things where app layering can help out greatly, right? You have all of these layers. You can quickly give applications to users, or you can set dependencies. But if you don't do that, you have 500 applications that you need to check. This is just one of those things, right? Now, the error the application gives me is actually quite nice. There's a dependency that's not found. I need the Java runtime. So let's go into app layering, especially for James, because he's not seen this before. And let's see if that makes sense. So I have my images here. I have my layers here. You can see that I have Java. And let's see if I have any assignments. So assignments is users that are allowed to see this. And it turns out nobody's allowed to see this. All right. That's fixable. We make an elastic assignment because that's the quickest option, really. And I give it to domain users, my most popular group. I assign the layer, but now I still don't know if everything works, right? Maybe now my FreeMind application works, but 10 of my other applications don't work anymore. So obviously we are going to go in and run that test again. Now, this is all it takes. It takes one click of a button. You've prepared the test, and it literally takes 2 minutes to test. How many were there? 10 or 12? 10 applications. I can see that there. And you get the results. Now, typically you're not doing 10 applications, but let's say you're doing 50 or 500 applications. It takes a little bit longer, but still you don't have to go through the work of manually checking all of your applications. And in an ideal world, of course, you would also make sure that this is part of an automated workflow where you change your image, it goes into a QA testing flow, test is automatically done. You get a report when testing is finished. And once that is good, it goes on to the next stage. And the next stage could be many things. Could be manual testing by application owners, could be doing a load test, could be putting it to production. That really depends on your own environment. But you can see we're quickly going through these applications. And if we're looking at this, we can actually see that it is starting these applications, right? It's quickly opening them, going through it, but we don't interact with them at this point, right? So it's just starting the application and closing it. We also have modes where we interact with it, but that's not typically what we do with the bulk of the applications. We just want to establish now, hey, do they work or not? I don't know why I put FreeMind in as the last application, but it should be the next one. So let's hope that me publishing Java actually resolved. It's also starting a Citrix session right in front of it. There you go. FreeMind is started, and it will close the application now automatically, and then it will give me a report where it says, hey, I tested these 10 applications. Before we saw that 2 were broken. I resolved 1 of them. So if we go to a report, it might take a second for it to appear here. We can see that hopefully the software reports that everything is doing great. So give it 1 more second. Maybe do a refresh. Shouldn't be necessary, but it's always nice to click things. There we go, finished. So again, I didn't just test the 1 application now, I tested all of them, right? And we can see that unlike the previous test, FreeMind has now actually started. I have the screenshot to prove that. So we're all good. I can move to the next step. So let's quickly jump back to PowerPoint, because of course I prepared some stuff there. Because now in my environment, I'm going into load testing, right? This is what most people know us of anyway. So let's quickly see what happens when we start load testing Citrix layering. So I made a test plan. First of all, I tested Windows 10 with no layering at all. By the way, I also used the design ideas in PowerPoint this morning, and I don't know why it decided to give me a caterpillar as an icon, but I kind of liked it, so I kept it there. You know, why argue with an AI? Secondly, I tested Windows 10 1809 with 1 merged layer. So that's why you use a template. All of the layers are actually merged down, and you get your golden image. Lastly, I tested with elastic layers. Now, elastic layers are the flexible ones. I showed you, you can assign a user and it gets the application at Logon. Of course, hypothetically, that's where I get the biggest performance impact, right? Because you get things at a penalty. You don't get anything for free when it comes to flexibility in IT. So this is my test system. It's a Cisco HyperFlex system. I got 3 of them. They perform great. In this case, I ran the test on VMware ESX with VMware Horizon View, Windows 10, and Office 2016. Reason I did VMware Horizon View is I also did app layering, liquidware. I'm going to do FS Logic, so I needed to choose 1 common platform. But of course, if you want to do this with Citrix virtual apps and desktops, you will get the same results. Now, first test, no layering at all. Through 250 users at my environment, and it doesn't break a sweat. Now, for those of you who haven't seen these charts before, on the horizontal axis, we see the number of users, in this case 250, and on the y-axis, we see the response time in seconds. I'm not going to specify in this webinar exactly what it means, but you can see while I add more users to the system, it gradually gets slower. But I stay below that red threshold line where it automatically determines, hey, the system is full. You should not put more users on the system. Then I went into creating a templated layer. And I don't know if this is the right word. It is a template layer. I kind of like merged layers. And this is one of those things that I didn't know existed. I only thought the elastic layers existed. And the great thing about a merged layer is that it flattens the image again. So the image that's built for your VDI is actually the same as it would be when you just do next finish with all of the applications in your image. You just have less images to manage, of course. So there's many advantages. And with the platform layer, you can put the VMware Horizon agent in one image and maybe the the Citrix VDA in the other, or some hypervisor tools if you're running different hypervisors, or I don't know, cloud tools. So the merge layer, I have to say, really grew on me. I like the concept. And the best thing about it is I didn't really see a difference in performance. Now, the next one up is elastic layers. So again, a poll question. I'd like to know from you guys, are you currently using Citrix elastic layers? So I do see a pop-up that the poll is open. So thank you, Stephanie. I think, shall we do another 30 seconds again?
Sure.
It's an easy yes or no question.
And
Then,
looks like about half have voted, so just another about 10 more seconds. How about that?
all right.
So far, a lot of no.
All right.
All right, I'll close it out. So share it. So yeah, you've got
Wow.
a lot of no, a couple of whats.
So I can't see it. So how many no's do we have? I'm curious now.
73% on the no, 20% yes, and 6% for the what. So that's quite surprising to me.
All right. So if you're getting started with this, make sure to check out the template layers, right? Now I'm going to show you now why I think you should be careful with elastic layers. So here's that result. Remember, I could do 250 users easily, right? With the native applications or with the template. It dropped from 250 to 190 users on my environment. So that's a significant impact. So you have to be careful with that. You don't have to, I would say, don't over deliver elastic layers. Of course, applications like Office, you shouldn't officially layer them. It's also not supported. I didn't do that in this environment, by the way. But you can imagine if you have very big layers or you have a lot of them, each one of them needs to be mounted at Logon. So there is a performance penalty for that. So you drop from 250 to 190. Now, you can mitigate the impact of this a little bit if you're running optimization tools. So I always recommend either VMware OSOT or the Citrix Optimizer. I don't really have a strong preference to each one of them. You could even run both of them. You could run them on your VDI. You can run them on your regular Fed clients to make them faster. If you don't know these tools, just download them, open them up. They will analyze your system and recommend things that you can disable to make it faster. And it's next finish. But do think about what you disable here. If you disable search and indexing, your machine will be faster, but you will never be able to find back your emails. If you disable your firewall, system might be faster, but your security officer is not going to be happy with you. So, think a little bit about what you check here, but they're really good recommendations for performance, and we see really big impact when you use these. So, the numbers put together. No layering, 250 users, merge layer, 250 users, elastic layer, 190. But there's another number we always look at, and this is the VSI base. So this is how long a certain amount of actions took when there is no stress on the system. And again, we can see no layering and merge layer, they perform exactly the same, which is great. I would recommend that.
I just got a quick question there. How many elastic layers were actually connected up during this test?
Not a lot. That would be FreeMind, Adobe Reader, Java, and maybe one more. All small applications.
Right,
So
cool.
3 or 4. Yeah. So elastic layer, we can see that it actually bumps from 1100 to 1400. So there's an impact even on the system when there is no stress, right? Because people always think, I'll just find out when there's 200 people on my system. No, you'll actually know from the first user that logs on. So it's an important distinction that you need to make there. We can also look at Logon Times, one of those metrics that everybody has a feel for. Again, on the y-axis, we have logon time in seconds. On the y2, we have the number of users, and we can see that I've done a test of about an hour, 50 minutes. I'm gradually logging on more users. If I have my natively installed applications, my logons take about 25, 28 seconds. I know I can improve on this, but hey, don't shoot the messenger. Merge layer, exactly the same, right? So the merge layer and native applications, no worries there. Then the elastic layer has quite a profound impact actually on logons. So this is just one of those things where it shows, hey, it's good to do load testing. It's good to do a load test where you want to see, hey, what's the impact with one user, with 100, or with 1,000, or what if I fiddle around with the settings of, application layering, or what if I deliver certain applications merged or actually in these elastic layers? How does it impact all of the other ones? Now, there are so many variables in here that it's hard for me to predict exactly how things will go in your environment. But this is a very standard empty environment. There's no antivirus. There's no difficult applications with all sorts of limitations and backends that you need. So it is fair to say that on average, our customers will see results that are worse than this, or not worse, maybe an amplification of this, right? So make sure to do the tests before you go live, ideally with one of our products, right? So to show you how easy it is to do the application load test, again, we can go into the same product. I still have my report open here, I see. Need to log on again. Username and password are both admin. Feel free to go into my environment. We can go to load testing results. You can see I've done quite a lot of them, but it's fairly simple. You do 2 tests, you hit compare, and you can see the results. I still have some stuff open here, I see. Let's disable this one. So in this chart, we see response time of the application, in this case, PowerPoint, which is a native application, right? I didn't use layering here, but it's on a system where I used layering. So we can see that the continuous blue line in the bottom is actually PowerPoint on a system where I used a merge layer, so a normal golden image, versus the image where I use other applications that are being delivered elastically. So we go from 0.9 seconds to 1.6 or 2 seconds, even when there's 250 users active on the system. So arguably that's not too bad, right? Going from 1 to 2 seconds, is that really a problem? Personally, I don't think so, but it's really one of those things that you want to know before you go live. Same when we add an application that is actually being delivered elastically, we can see that the dotted line is Adobe Reader, the dotted greenish line, I guess, is Adobe Reader elastically. And we can see that during the logon phase, it's actually pretty quirky. So sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. And this is actually worse than an application that's always slow, because people never really know what to expect. So it's one of those things where sometimes having a slow system overall gives you a better feel for user satisfaction. But it's just nice to know, like, hey, the second my logon storm completed at 9:15, 9:30 in the morning, when I'm in my steady state again, everything calms down. Yes, it's a little bit slower, but I think these differences do not make the biggest difference in the world. So I'm cool with just having a few elastic layers, but don't overdo it. There are scenarios, if you do too many of them, it is going to slow your logons right down to a point where it's not usable anymore. So make sure that, use it where you really need to, where there's no other way around.
So Mark, I've just got a comment from Jeff Pitch, who obviously knows exactly what he's talking about, saying that the layering at login, the login performance hits generally only for the first user of those apps. So when user 1 logs in, that's the one that takes the performance hit, and then the subsequent users wouldn't get as much of a hit as the layer is already mounted.
That's an interesting suggestion. So I'm assuming that there will be a difference there between virtual apps and virtual desktops. So that I think that's actually something I'm going to test after this webinar. I don't have a preset answer, but I can imagine in a VDI scenario that the results will differ from a more traditional server-based computing scenario. It's interesting. Didn't think of that one. Damn it. So another poll. How many applications do you actually have in your environment?
All right, that's running.
Cool. So I think there's about 5 options. I don't think we will have too many people in there who have less than 10 applications, but we've been surprised before today with these polls. So let's see what what the results of this one are.
All right, go about a few more seconds. Get your last answers in. All right, close it out in 3, 2, 1, pencils down. All right, I'll share those results. So
no real surprises there, although between 1 and 10, 4%, 11 to 25, 9%, 25 and 100, 39%. So I think that's probably what you'd expect. 100 to 500, 32%, and more than 500, 15%. That is a bit surprising, actually. That's a lot of apps.
Yep. And typically, what I remember from back in the day, from being an actual consultant that came at visited customers, it's typically double the number than what you think you have once you actually start looking for it. So I hope I'm not scaring too many people here. So I'd say, perfect, throw them in application layering, that's fine, but keep it cool with elastic layers. Don't do too many of those to make sure everything keeps on performing well. Now, we've gone through application compatibility testing, right? We now know that my 500 applications work. We've gone through load testing. We know what the impact is going to be if I start doing, application layering in my infrastructure, and also what the impact of different applications there is. But once I bring it to production, it's kind of out of my hands as IT departments, right? You never really know what other people are doing about it. And there's this thing we always talk about where you have planned and unplanned changes, right? Planned changes are the things that you know about, upgrading Windows 10 to a new version, maybe making a change to your application. Unplanned changes are somebody changing something in the network, maybe outside of your organization, maybe somebody doing that firmware upgrade to a storage device that they forgot to tell you about. There's always things that happen that are outside of your control. Of course, moving to the cloud makes that game even scarier, right? They're patching for things like Intel Meltdown, Spectre, L1TF, even before it hits the streets. So how can you pick up on that before real users get into trouble? So the last thing I want to show you in today's demo is a little bit about continuous testing. So imagine we have those users that are running, and they're running 24/7, right? All of the things that I've done now, I haven't done to my production environment, but I could, because what if I take those same robot users and I leave them running, not 200 of them, but maybe 4 or 5 from different locations. I leave them running all the time, and it gives me feedback on the infrastructure. Now, we already saw in my application compatibility testing that I was having applications with an application called microdicom. I actually published this one to my production environment with the error, and so even in production, I can still see this error coming back. This gives me really nice insights over a longer time how my most important business applications are doing, right? I can look at the last hour, I can get alerts if things deviate, and not just alerts on does the application start or not, but we can really go deep in your application. So we started application testing with just doing the bulk, only testing if they start, and we test that with all of your apps typically. Then we do load testing with a smaller section of your apps, but still we don't really go in those applications to maybe look up a patient or run a report. And then we have what we call the continuous testing, where we really drill down in your line of business application. We take your most critical processes and even put alerts around that. Because, for example, in a hospital, emergency room, if there is a service level agreement on the real staff to be able to help a patient within the first, 3 minutes that they come in, it is kind of useful that the system allows them to log on within that time and find that person's allergies, right? So we can continuously test that. And it's really cool because these robot users, because they do the same thing over and over again, the data is very consistent. And this really helps with troubleshooting because you can immediately see if somebody changed something to the system, it makes a bump, it doesn't come back, it goes up or down. It's really nice to see these patterns. It gives you the opportunity to do it from multiple locations even. I'm just running this from one location, but you could run this from 5 or 10 different offices. Now with everybody working from home, you could even put robot users in people's homes if you like, but typically we put them at your bigger satellite offices. Then you don't just get to look at the last hour. Of course, you can look at it over longer periods of time. So let's say you want to look at the day or the week, right? And I can see here I typically have 2 launchers or 2 sites that I'm testing from. One is really bad on latency. One is very comfortable, always low. So I can predict from this, from which side my users will be happier. talking about predicting, I can also predict 30 days out. So let's imagine that we see a trend here where we say, hey, you are going to pass that threshold within the next 30 days. We think we can already alert you ahead of time, which I find pretty useful if you look at this. You get some insights before things are happening. Logon Times, of course, also by the day, the hour, the week, really good troubleshooting tool. So these are the logons of the robot users, right? Not your real guys. Typically, you look at both real monitoring and our systems together for the best insights. And then also your application testing, the one that we just looked at for the last hour, we can do that also for the week or the month. And I mean, you can go way back in here. This environment has been running forever. And what's nice about this is that we also create reports. So a typically weekly snapshot that you can send to your manager or to your customer where it says, hey, our uptime was 99% this week. And we had these applications work and these logons worked and they were all within our service level agreement, or they weren't. So it's a really simple, human readable report that gives you a lot of insights to report back into your organization.
So Mark, about the testing there, actually got a question about, can it do any sort of testing to verify whether applications would be suitable to run on cloud workloads, for instance?
Yeah, so actually, it's a good question. It's very suitable for that, because the biggest problem we are seeing our customers have that are moving to the cloud now is to figure out what instance to choose and how the application responds when maybe your data is still in another location or in a remote site or in a different data center. So by simulating all of these things, you can test this without bothering your real users by publishing desktops in the cloud for them and maybe have 50 or 100 of them be guinea pigs. This is really one of those things where our systems can do that for you before you start to do your pilot phase, really. And then, of course, you can keep it running after that and can get the continuous results, which is, I mean, really useful, especially now Microsoft launched their Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session. Because with Enterprise Multi-Session, you get back that same story where you're putting multiple users on one system. So at some point, that instance, however big it is or however small, is going to be full. So our software can help you find that sweet spot of the cheapest instance with the best performance for you and your applications from different locations. And I mean, now it starts to sound like marketing, but yeah, we can do that. So there was a demo on continuous testing. We're all about user experience, right? And for continuous testing, we do this by checking the application performance and the workspace availability. This is happening all the time, 24/7. And what we produce from that, as you saw, human readable reports, real-time dashboards, but we always get a lot of asks about just tapping into our data. Can I just retrieve that and pull that into some other system? Sure, no worries. Everything you saw in my dashboard is also being pulled via APIs. Automate right away, go have fun with that. But for now, I'd say just download the product and give it a spin. Try it first, and then if you like it, you can really automate it into your environment. So some conclusions. Application layering can be done without performance impact. If you would have asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have laughed at you and said, no, not going to happen. It turns out you can. So I learned a thing or two. Use elastic layers, but use them with caution. So don't overdo it. They're cool, but only if you really need them. Our software can quickly help you identify issues, right? Even before the real users log on. And there's a free trial on our website. So go to loginvsi.com, download your trial, and live a happy life. Are there any more questions, James?
Yeah, we've got a few questions out there for you. Quite a few people asking about your storage, you know, what's especially with regard to the elastic layers and, you know, around that as well, around your sort of setup. What have you got between the share for your elastic layers and the actual target devices themselves?
Yeah, so my setup is really simple. I'm just using one file share because I've done some monitoring on it. A simple SMB file share for me was enough. Now that simple SMB file share for me is being delivered from, I don't know, a storage system with 10 SSDs and an enterprise flash disk. So I didn't really expect it to get into trouble. It's just one of those things where outside of a lab environment, it's really tricky because you have antivirus. It can be at a remote site. I did notice that you can set a registry key for the users so that you can point them towards different storage locations. So if you have some desktops on site and some in the cloud, it's really easy. You just push your registry key and you move them to different storage. But yeah, I haven't seen any particular problems there myself because I kept it simple. But I can imagine you'd want to test that. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about cloud as well, and particularly some questions about how easy it is to do app layer in the cloud. My apologies, my wife's just walked in the room behind me, Tracy. I'm on a camera, pet. Can you go out the room, please? Hey, dear mate. Sorry, apologies about what was I talking about? Cloud. People asking about how easy or difficult app layering is to do in the cloud. Now, as far as I know, which I'll admit is not a great amount, there is the app layering service in Citrix Cloud, which I think is available only in Azure. And if you wanted to stand it up in another cloud, you'd have to sort of build the infrastructure in there and just host it as almost like an on-premises one, I think. Isn't that true?
Yeah, and I did notice that if we go to my ELM, it already timed out, of course, but you can actually set connectors for Azure in here. So that makes it quite easy to do the connection. So Azure is in here. I didn't see Amazon or Google Cloud in here. But what the ELM does, it really it puts out an image to package on, and it sucks that image back in, and then really analyzes everything at a file level. So I can imagine it's quite difficult for the product teams at Citrix to make that happen in every cloud. So I'd say for Azure, you're good to go. For the other ones, please consult the Citrix team. I really don't know.
Yeah, I've got an AWS environment, and we were told by Citrix that we'd have to build an ALM in there and essentially just use that almost like an on-premises deployment, which is why we kind of leaned a bit differently for. So I've got the cat coming attacking me now. It's a disaster today. But yeah, we leaned down a different route. I've also got a couple of questions around: have you done any testing between app layering and MSIX app attach? Now, I know app attach is very new, so I don't know whether you've had much of a chance to have a go at that, but have you got any comparisons between the two?
Not yet. So
fair enough.
Drop me a note, and I will definitely keep you posted there. So that's research that's been going on. So I've gone through VMware App Volumes, Liquidware Flex App, and FSLogix is coming up.
Cool.
So
I've got a bunch of questions coming in now. What are the most common issues and challenges that you get with elastic layers? Is there any applications you find that are not compatible at all?
So officially, at least, Office is not supported, but I think that from a compatibility perspective, the Citrix layering is pretty great. They can do good integrations with the system. Traditionally, I've seen a lot of problems with browsers, those kinds of things, especially Internet Explorer. Printer drivers can sometimes be tricky because the driver needs to be available at system boot for it to be registered properly. So if you're using elastic layers and PDF printers, you can have some issues there. I would say those kinds of things.
Right. So just the common things that you do see within any kind of layering technology, yeah, the similar ones.
Yep.
We've also got about, are there any figures you can get out about how many more VMs can be run per host or per virtual apps VM? So you're talking about, I think, data around the sort of density that you can get on there using layering?
So with my 250 users, there was no sweat. So the ELM is doing nothing during packaging. You're using the ELM and you set the rights and those kinds of things. After that, it doesn't do anything anymore. So you have the impact on your servers that are hosting the desktops, right? So I went from 250 to 190 users if I'm doing elastic layers. And you have to watch your file share. But if you're just using image templates, which I think from a performance perspective makes most sense, you won't have any performance issues, so to say, that are different than what you would normally have with your applications, because it's all flattened into that one golden image.
Yeah. There's people asking as well, were you using Citrix workspace environment management during the test? So were you just using standard GPO stroke studio policies?
No, just standard. Everything standard. Next, finish.
Excellent. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll down the bottom of the list here. Somebody said, how good are user layers? That's an interesting question. Have you done any testing with user layers as part of the app layering product?
No, because if I would have read the documentation, I would have had time to do that before this webinar. I chose to ignore the documentation a little bit too long, so I didn't look into user layers yet. I expect that they will actually have significant impact on performance, as do the elastic layers. So that's
Right.
one on the list. So we will definitely talk about that. But it's if you're using that, please also drop me a note, because I'd love to get some feedback from the real world.
I think it's interesting to note that the Citrix policies now have the option for the user personalization layer, which is essentially driven by the app layering engine as well. And that's an interesting kind of use case, you know, around the sort of profile mounting tools that we talk about out there. Because, for instance, you could use the user personalization layer for users who want to install their own applications, possibly, and things like that. So I think it's interesting that that feature of app layering has actually been built into the standard Citrix policies now, which I must admit I want to get around to trying out myself. Somebody else asking, how many users can you get per ELM appliance? I don't expect you'll know that one off the top of your head.
No idea. Well, like I said, the ELM is not really doing anything once you're in production, right? It's capturing that image, but after that, you can turn it off. It literally during the logon phases of your desktops, turn it off. Nothing will happen. But this was a learning moment for me as well. I got this from Ron's videos. It's really a package. Look at it like a packager. After packaging and setting the rights, you can turn it off. So.
There's a couple of other ones in there. Have you done any testing moving layers between different hypervisors? Which is an interesting question. Is it possible to move the layers between different hypervisors? I'm not entirely sure it is.
You could make a little different platform layer for that.
Right.
So yeah, technically that's possible. What we are seeing, however, in other research is that the performance between different hypervisors doesn't make the biggest difference. So you have to look at more things like, hey, do I already have that hypervisor? What's management like? Are my employees trained on it? Do I actually want to migrate to or from that hypervisor? And I think with that question, arguably most people are looking at a hypervisor that's not running in their own data center anymore, or at least is prepared to make that jump. But performance is, there's 1%, 2%, or 3% difference. But honestly, I'm a performance guy. I wouldn't look at the performance of my hypervisor. There's more important things.
It's actually quite good that Jeff Pitch is on the call, because he's just put in a comment, nothing communicates back to the LM after the image is pushed, so users never talk to it, so there's no real user count on there. So that's just confirming what you just said there. I got another question. Is there any reason why you would choose app layering over FSLogic's app masking? I think we're comparing apples and pears there, really, between app masking and app layering. Although app masking is kind of a bit like, I don't know, like reverse layering in a sense, in that it reveals them down. Yeah, it reveals them down there. I mean, I think that comes down to possibly management overhead, really, wouldn't you? I mean, we've got a single image in our environment. We use FSLogic's app masking to essentially deliver different apps, different kind of desktops to different users based around that single image, whereas app layering kind of has a bit of an overhead as well. But you could also use the two of them together as well, as actually somebody's just put a comment in there as well saying that. Yes, and they're using FSLogic for the profile and Elastic for some of the apps. So yeah, I guess you can combine them together. Somebody's just asked, why aren't you presenting from your garage, Mark? Which I don't know.
So yeah, we recently did a virtual summit event, and I was going to be talking loud all day long, and I wanted to do it somewhere else than my office that I'd been living in for the last 6 weeks. So I went to my garage. But I didn't want to drag all of my gear back to the garage just for an hour of presenting again. But if people appreciate me doing that, I'll do that next time. No worries.
I've also got a question about Login VSI directly saying, how much does it cost? And I did have a quick look on your website and it just says to contact the sales department there. So I'm assuming that's not something you can particularly put a figure on out there.
That's a good answer. Yeah, just ask the sales guys. So it's not really about what it costs, right? It's what it saves you. I really don't know. For me, it's also the thing I care about least. So I'm a tech guy. I get to break stuff all day long. Sure, you have to pay for software. I don't know. Contact our sales guy. But what I do know is that it does really help you. I'm convinced about that, and that in the long run, it doesn't actually cost you money, but you have to make an investment upfront.
So I'm just quickly checking because, as I said, I had a long list of questions. Somebody asking about running app layers on 2008 R2 server. I don't think that would be possible, or would it? Can you do app layering on?
Well,
probably Jeff will pop in with an answer in a second.
there's a lot of 2008 R2 icons in here, so I figure that that they're there for a reason.
All right.
Yeah, look, there they are. So
excellent.
they're I didn't put them there, so I guess that someday it works.
I'm sure Jeff will pop in with the answer to that if he's still there. He is. I believe it's still supported right at the core. We should have had Jeff doing the moderation instead of me. Really, it would have been much easier. But get it in. Let me just quickly check through there. Make sure I haven't missed anything out. A couple of questions around people asking, do you think app layering is going to be around for the long term with the likes of app attach coming along and things like that? Do you think it's still got a lot of legs, the app layering product, that it has something that gives it a unique selling point?
Well, just looking at the market data for this year, we can at least see that the trend is going up.
Right.
So I think that the answer lies in the data there. At this point, it seems to be on the rise. We'll see again next year. I mean, technologies like the cloud can be very disruptive, but in practice, we're also seeing that people are not just going to migrate everything to the cloud tomorrow, right? So complex technology stacks, they are going to stay on-prem for a while, but also jump some applications over. So I think we might see less of it in the future. I hope we don't need tricks like layering to do a proper image management, but for now it is what it is, and I think we will see it grow a bit more before it goes down, for sure.
Excellent. Jeff's also, sorry, not Jeff, another guy's confirmed that Windows 7 is also supported on app layering there as well. So this is a bit of a community sort of feed-in discussion. I think that just about covers it for the questions. We've got a request saying, have you got any resources and tutorials to learn Login VSI for load testing in our environment? I'm assuming your website will be full of stuff like that, is it?
Yeah, and Mark at loginvsi.com or hit me up on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'll help you. It's no worries.
Excellent. I think I've covered off hopefully everything. If I've missed something that's been thrown in the comments, I apologise. But back over to you, Stephanie. I apologise for my wife coming in halfway through. She needed my bank card to buy something, so it was obviously an emergency.
I'm sure it was. Thanks, guys. I'm going to show you just a couple more slides. Hold on. There they are. They popped up. Just a reminder that obviously we can't all meet in person, but our CUGC meetings are still happening and you can join them and you don't have to travel. So that's a bonus. We've got 2 tomorrow. So May 14th, Ireland and Orlando. Pretty cool. The Ireland meeting has a very full agenda, and our Orlando has actually Patrick Coble. He's a CTP. He's big on security. He's speaking at both events. So the really cool thing about all these virtual meetings is Patrick can be in both places. But we have a full calendar, so please check out our events at mycugc.org. They've been working hard, the leaders and our events team, to make these really fun for everybody. So hopefully you can attend a session soon. And finally, just a reminder that if you did opt in for a chance to win a pair of Apple AirPods, the winner will be chosen at random off the air, and we'll announce on Twitter, so be sure to follow us at myCUGC and be on the lookout for the winner. And then also just come back and check on us at mycugc.org if you've never been out there, or if you're not currently a CUGC member. There's lots of great information and resources for you. We've got forums, you can ask questions, you can answer questions. There's local groups that you can get involved with your city, your country. And then there's other webinars and webinar recordings that you can go through and learn some stuff, and lots of blog posts. So we have a lot of things for you over at myCUGC. Hope you'll come and check it out. And with that, I just want to thank everybody for being with us today. Thank you, Mark, and thanks, James. I appreciate both of you giving us your time today. A really great presentation. I think everybody probably learned a lot. And I know Jeff has already reached out to me. I think he's interested in doing his own webinar now. So I think you've sparked some interest there on a user share. So I'll be reaching back out to Jeff. So thanks. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right, everybody. I hope you all stay safe, and we'll see you on another CUGC webinar or at a CUGC to go event again soon. Bye.